The site for the first Klein family reunion was at the Nemacolin Woods Resort. This beautiful setting happens to be very near the Monongahela River Valley, where the Klein family settled in those small industrial towns of Brownsville, Charleroi, Monessen, and Denora. One of the motivations that I had in trying to organize this reunion is that the history gets lost, and unless it's recorded some way, people just don't remember, and we really would not have the advantage of knowing where our roots were. But while we're still here, we older cousins are going to try to share with you some of the stuff that we remember.
Well, you know, the fact that I am one of the younger ones coming over the age of 4, there's not too much that I can recall that would be a revelation to all of you, but even as I listen to my older cousins, there are things that I didn't know, and I think I'll share that with you. The fact that our grandparents were actually born in this country, I knew that, but I didn't know that Uncle Jake was also born here, and so was Aunt Frida. Those subsequently, at what age I'm not sure, they decided rather than live in the slums of New York, they would go to Hungary and have a better life there. So they migrated back to Hungary, and that's where the family grew. But as a teenager, Uncle Jake and Aunt Frida, I guess, came back to the United States for a better life, and I guess you know the story from there. Beyond that, I'm going to let my older cousins tell you some of the exciting things, but I do remember the family get-togethers at a place what we call Thornton, which is sort of a suburb of Brownsville, and would all meet there, especially on the high holidays. The older relatives would play poker from after dinner to the wee hours of the morning, and we would play around the grounds. There was many acres in the area. I do remember Uncle Jake had a hobby. His hobby was fireplaces. I don't know, they must have had 10 rooms in the home, and every one had a fireplace. And then the other thing I learned about people that lived in Brownsville, you know, not all of us had the Hungarian accent. After Uncle Jake passed away, Raymond came to live with us in Uniontown. And just to give you an idea of the accent that Brownsville people have, and probably even people in western Pennsylvania, he came home at dinner once and he said, "Ain't yuns et yet?" So that's typical Brownsville lingo. That's about the best I can remember. Oh yeah, one other little tidbit. My wife reminded me about the names, and when we came over, it wasn't Jack, Lenny, David. It was Echi, Ossi, Dudush, and I was Yeno. In fact, we all came through Ellis Island, and I recall when I went through Ellis Island that the immigration officer says, "Yeno, that's not American. Your name is Jack." That's how
Being the youngest of the cousins, the male cousins, I don't have many memories, but they go back a little while. My first paying job, and I have to thank Cousin David and Cousin Louise, that they ruined me for life. Even though it was $300 a month, I was very thankful to get it. I worked as a horseback riding instructor at Camp Linwood, which some of you have heard and sent your kids to, and they watched after me and pulled me through that, my first earning experience. And then Jack, of course, took me to Atlantic City to work in the summer, and I discovered girls. But we all slept in the same bed, all the guys, so, you know, it was in shifts, so that's how we saved money, and we worked, and we had a good time. And
Tell me how you became a teetotaler.
oh, I tell you, a teetotaler. Well, before that, cousin Jack was going to Penn State, and I was in high school in Brownsville. I think I was a junior, and he invited me to Penn State. And it says, bring your own bottle. Bring your own bottle, okay. And we had a bar, and I snagged the bottle and went to Penn State. Proceeded to drink out of the bottle. I didn't know that's what you do. All the other guys were doing it. I got so sick. I got the dry heaves, and I thought I was dying. I didn't know what they were. My stomach was cramped. The ride back from Penn State to Brownsville was absolutely the longest ride I've ever made in my life, and I've not drank since. That was it. Jack Solomon is a guy that can, if you've got any drinking problems in our families, which I don't know if we do, send them with Jack. Jack will take care of you. I have fond memories of my cousins, and I'll be very, of course I'm choked up even starting it, but I remember one very important thing in my life. I'm losing my voice already. My father, I think I was probably 9 or 10, and he would take me, thank you, cousin.
What's Wesley,
We'll get him.
My cousin Dave has made very, very important things in my life. He lowered the microphone, so, you know, guys, you can hear me.
You can count on me.
My father took me for a ride to the county seat, Uniontown. I know you know Uniontown was the biggest thing around here, but Uniontown at the time was the county, is still the county seat of Fayette County, and we went into a judge's chambers. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in the older courtrooms. The judge's chambers were not, it was a big deal. It was quiet, and the judge is there, and he still had his robes on. And my dad said, they were talking business, and the judge started yelling at my dad. He said, Jake, God damn it, I can't sign another one of these. My dad said, sign it, Tony, sign it. And it was, he says, you brought 36 people over. You don't even know them. He said, to every minor, anybody that came to my dad's bar that wanted to bring someone from Europe. And I don't know the timing or what years they were, because I was born in 37. It could have been close to the end of the war. It could have been after the war. But I know that we can thank Judge Calvacani for that thing.
That's what I thought. She's definitely the youngest.
Ray, I don't know, Ray, do you have the plate
Yes, I do.
with us? Today was a special day for me because I returned something that I should have returned about 1959. What was that? I think in 1959.
44 years ago.
Pardon me?
44 years.
44 years ago, I should have returned a plate to my Aunt Mary. My Aunt Mary used to come in her Packard to my house when I would act up, and my mother would call my Aunt Mary in Brownsville and say, I can't do a thing with her. She says, send her out to me. So Aunt Mary would pull up in her big Packard, and I would go and spend about a week and a half in Brownsville at Reform School. And one particular time, that was the last time I went, Aunt Mary brought my mother and father a big piece of pie from the hotel, the Monongahela Hotel. And I went with Aunt Mary. I sat in the back seat, and she drove me to Brownsville, and I played with Ray's cousin Barbara from his mother's sister's daughter, and she was a waitress at the Monongahela Hotel. And after work, what was her name, Ray?
Barbara.
Barbara's mother.
Ann.
Ann would take Barbara and I skating and bingo and shopping in Brownsville. But anyways, the plate stayed at my house on Niagara Street in Oakland, and I just loved my Aunt Mary. I mean, you know Aunt Mary, what she was like. So I would eat out of that plate every day. And when I got married, my mother gave me that plate, and I always had it. And I returned the plate today to Raymond. So it was her. Every time I would eat out of this plate, it was from the Monongahela Hotel, I would think about her because I had wonderful times in Brownsville with Rags. It was a dog vacation to me, and just a wonderful vacation in Brownsville. And I had great memories of Uncle Jake and Aunt Mary's complex there. How many houses were there? 2, 3 houses up there? Yeah, and all the sheepdogs, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I just wanted to share that. When I was a little girl, we used to take a ride to this place called Knoll. And I remember driving all the way down into a river. We parked by the river, and there was this big river. Apparently my mother and father had a hotel down there in Knoll, and my sister went to grade school there. I mean, these were wonderful trips. This was a great place. But I have to say one other thing, because I'm youngest, so you have to understand, on Friday afternoons, the teacher would say to the kids, "What are you doing this weekend?" And the kids would say, "Well, my mother's taking me to the zoo." And when the teacher said, "Do you want to stand up? And what are you doing this weekend?" I said, "I'm going to Beylah's bar." Because my father used to help my Aunt Frida. At that point, Beylah had a bar, a beer garden down by 5th Avenue, down in the hill, and Frida kept the one, Beylah's bar, on Penn Avenue. I don't know, I guess you all know that. And on Fridays, they would go and bartender. My dad would bartender, my mother would help my Aunt Frida cook all that wonderful Hungarian food in the back to serve all these drunks. And so I'd be there just helping out, and all these drunks would buy me potato chips and Cokes, and I'd play this bowling machine. And look, I mean, nothing has happened particularly to me, and today they would have sued their parents. And then Animal Friends was next door, so then I'd run next door and clean all the cages for them for free because I love dogs and everything. So then I'd run back, and then I got to sleep over with my Aunt Frida, me and her in a double bed together. And start the whole thing on Saturday, the cooking and my dad back. So it was a fun childhood being with the Kleins, and that's all I can say. Thank you very much.
But I think that it would be a mistake and it would be an omission not to recognize the United States of America, who welcomed us and allowed us to be here and do what we did.